Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recall for Monday, August 19th. And what a day of performance there. A lot of momentum in a couple different areas like VKTX, which was driving the biotech group today. The XBI ETF jumped out to being up over 3% for the day. So very strong day. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes, only not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read that full risk disclaimer right there. Also, it was kind of for a good portion of the day, it was different areas kind of leading the market a little bit. You had the precious metals that were doing pretty well. Look at the silver miners, we're up 3%. The gold miners, which kind of caught last week with the move in GLD. Interesting, GLD was down a little bit today, but just the kind of follow through move from some of these areas of the market. But you started to see the Qs were lagging at one point in the day, and S&P was up a little bit more, and the small caps were up more, but they really kind of powered through, up 1.3%. This little company called NVDA, I'm joking around, had a huge day. So I'll go over a couple of these charts, but one of the things that I realized, like right in the beginning of the day, was that breadth was pretty strong. And we started to kind of break higher, and I put together obviously a watch list for Tribeca Trade Group members every week, and obviously last week it did very well. But this week, I tried not to include that many tech names, not on purpose, just because I thought that they were a little bit extended. But you can kind of see, I mean, this is the sometimes is like it isn't just one day. It's usually like sometimes by the end of the week you get this performance, and I don't remember that many names. I think we have on the watch list this week 17 names, and 14 of them triggered in one day. Very impressive. So we'll go through a couple of these names, but this is the list, and I provide all these, obviously the list and so forth, but I provide all the setups and all the charts for each name and where the trigger is and so forth. So I took a couple of these trades today. I took Wix today, which worked out really well. Also took Upstart today, which was not on the list. And I'll deviate from the list. It's just a starting point for the week. But just impressive to see, because again, these are different groups. Not just obviously not just tech, which a lot of people will, or just straight up growth stocks on their list, but very impressive the performance. And I think that we do just about complete that 80% rule for the S&P. So I've been getting a lot of questions about, hey, what's the 80% rule? The 80, because I will tend to post it when I see it. So the 80% rule is when you start the period, or when, so obviously this box here is the value area for the month, right? That's the August value area. And it's when price either starts below or above or falls out of the value area in either direction, and it begins to enter. There's an 80% chance that you're going to go all the way through from one side to the other. Now, again, it's not 100% rule, and I didn't come up with this rule. It's based on value area studies. Obviously, we take the value area studies to the next level. It was originally just used for like S&P futures and for day trading, but we've adapted it, I should say, to various different time frames, and that has worked extremely well, to have an indicator that does something like that. And this way you get the 80% rule, not just on like the 5 minute value, or the day's value area, but also for the year and for the week and so on and so forth. So it's going to look a little bit different, the S&P futures, because that is still has about 60 basis points to go, 0.6 of a percentage point before you hit resistance. And again, it's not to say like price can't get above there. It's just that's where there's resistance. Every time you get to one of these levels of interest, it becomes a battle between the buyers and the existing sellers. And sometimes the existing sellers are going to come out more so at different time periods, but if at different places. But if the buyers overwhelm them, then the price can get through this. And this was a trade that there's a couple examples that I can kind of give you because I'm just kind of going through this because a couple of these 80% rules completed, right? And this is one that you saw me post as soon as we got into the value area, and I went long. This is one of the first names that I got long after August 5th. It was also FTAI that I put on the list, but I think this was actually Monday of last week that I got long, which I think was right in here. Yeah, so it's funny. It seems longer than a week ago, but it is what it is. And I was off a couple days towards the end of last week, and some of these trades for me were on autopilot. As long as they didn't do anything to the downside, and but that strategy actually worked pretty well. It was just to kind of sit in trades and not super. Um, Analyze them or micromanage the trades. It was a week where you can kind of just let your trades do what they're work for you and not get too involved. Now, not every week is like that, but certainly last week was that way. Also Qs. Oh, let me just go hit the S&P up first. I mentioned I would bring up this chart. The value is going to look a little bit different there, and I think this completed. Uh, yes, the 80% rule did complete for SPY. S&P futures, it did not. The reason why the valuaries are a little bit different there is because they're based on volume profiles, and the volume is going to be different for S&P futures than it is for SPY. So a little bit of a different valuary there. Qs, right? And a couple traders at Tribeca Trade Group talked about this on Friday and said that this was a nice little setup because that just triggered the 80% rule towards the end of last week. Now, again, you kind of have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because we're getting a bit, overbought in the short term. But that worked. If you went long the 80% rule, just thinking that you would get a further move inside the August value, where you got it. So I don't know when we're going to get some type of a check back. Obviously, that's difficult to predict. We do have some events towards the end of this week. We're going to get Mr. Jay Powell speaking, and I'll just go through the rest of the charts here. But here's IWM. Also had a strong day. Note that price right back into the different looking chart, and that's the way IWM has been all year long. Different than the S&P and different than the Qs, but we'll have to contend with that resistance right in front of it at 255, 215.55. All right, so I mentioned a couple other trades. This VKTX, interesting. Sometimes there isn't. I know everybody likes when there's news on a stock, but right now names are just running on momentum. And this name does report earnings, and I believe that they do have they do have a drug study that's coming up, but people are buying that into the event, and you do have a VPOC that's sitting up there at 72. So real nice move. I wanted to talk a little bit, here's the biotech chart, which was the best performing group today. Very nice, and we're long biotech and we're long healthcare in the TTG trend portfolio. So that's starting to work out quite nicely for us. Look at XLV. Now, I know that not everybody gets so excited about healthcare, but there's not that many groups and sectors that have broken out to new highs. Healthcare is one of them. So you've had a real good performance there. That's the all-time highs that you're looking at for healthcare. So very strong, and it's interesting what the market likes right now. The market is kind of likes some momentum names, and it also likes some more conservative things too. I think consumer staples are right there too at all-time highs too. So consumer staples. I was going through and this weekend, and I was talking about there's a couple of different ETFs that look at dividend, like dividend growth, not just dividend growth. And that you could look at like the DVY ETF, but names that consistently are growing their that are growing their dividends over time. They continue to increase them. VIG is a great ETF for that, and look at it outperform. So even though we've been seeing kind of this catch up in momentum and in growth, there are some of these areas that like a Coca-Cola, for example, or a Philip Morris that are continuing to kind of make highs. I don't know what's going on here. Why doesn't? Oh, maybe because I'm on futures. There we go. Here's Coca-Cola. I don't know what's going on. Trading view is very, very slow, so I may end the video a little bit short here, considering that I've been having some difficulty with charts. But Wix was a good trade. I did want to go over those two charts as well as Zillow too. See if this came up. Yeah, it did not make a new high today, or it did make a new high, just not a new closing high today. But that's KO, breaking out and been so similar to Philip Morris. Here is the chart of Upstart, which I think is one of the most interesting charts, and I'll tell you why if we can get the chart to come up here. But so there it is. It's breaking the yearly value area now. You have to be careful with this because this value area is based on the weekly chart, and the this weekly candle won't close obviously until Friday. That's 4 days away. But I was compelled to take this trade because it is broken out of the monthly value area, the yearly value area, which is the larger gray box, and also the value area for this week. So I don't mess around, when I see that where it's breaking out on multiple time frames like this, that is something that I'm definitely going to get involved in. Right. And there's the break of the value area like early on in the day. And I'm targeting for now 44. Now that's a decent clip up. That's about 10% up. So I don't think it's going to get there in a straight line. But real nice momentum there. And then another trade that I took today was Wix. Um, Again, just real nice trigger in the beginning of the day and had some nice follow through. And, I did take some targets and some profits in both of those trades. I always do that. Everybody's philosophy is a little bit different, but I like to take a target or two. This way I have dry powder. It gives me flexibility, but it's a heck of a nice candle there in Wix.com. All right, guys, that is it for today's recap. I'm going to keep it short. Have a great night and look forward to seeing you guys in the trading room. Have a great night, everybody.